A hideous walrus is sprawled by a zoo pool, chewing on raw fish. It's lying there at the edge of the water, ripping into a slimy fish, but its eyes are literally filled with tears. Nobody really knows. This walrus used to be a man who was turned into a human walrus. His name is Jack. His girlfriend stands behind the railing, staring at him. She's crying while tossing a fish into the water. Jack slowly drags himself out. His instincts kick in and he swallows the fish, but his eyes look like a living person trapped inside a shell. You want to know how he ended up like this? Then we gotta rewind to when he was still an online influencer. Jack was a streamer on the internet. He made money by telling messed up, clickbait horror stories. He was great at turning other people's tragedies into jokes in his edits, and he raked in views and gifts like crazy. One time, he talked about this guy doing a knife-throwing stunt at home. The knife slipped. He literally chopped his own leg off. The video was insanely bloody, but his followers couldn't stop laughing. Some said it was wild and insane. Others just kept sharing it non-stop. The views were skyrocketing. When Jack saw the numbers go crazy, he got super hyped. He booked a ticket and flew to New York on the spot. He wanted to shoot an even more explosive interview. By the time he got there, that guy was already dead. He couldn't handle the online hate anymore, so he ended his own life. The body was already gone. Jack looked around the empty room. He didn't feel sad at all. He just felt it was a waste. He complained that he showed up too late. He thought he'd sussed out on a viral video. Later that same day, he went to the bathroom and casually looked up. There was this weird flyer on the wall. On it were the words, "I've got a story. You got a drink." There was a phone number under it, and a line saying, "A story you only deserve to hear once in your life." That one sentence totally hooked him. He knew this kind of headline way too well. It was born for clicks and views. He called the number without thinking twice. The voice on the other end sounded super calm. They just gave him an address far from the city. Jack drove all the way out there. The surroundings got more and more remote. At the end of the road, there was nothing but a lonely mansion standing by itself. The door slowly opened. An old man stepped out, looking gentle and harmless. His movements were slow and steady. His smile looked polite and almost sincere. He invited Jack inside, made him tea himself. His voice was soft and friendly. He looked exactly like one of those lonely but kind retired grandpas. Once the mood felt warm and relaxed, the old man started telling his own story. Many years ago, he was a young sailor, working on cargo ships out at sea. One crash in the middle of the night completely flipped his life upside down. The ship hit an iceberg. Metal ripped open. His crewmates were thrown into the freezing water one by one. Their screams and struggles all blended together. When he woke up, he had washed up on a deserted island. He was shivering from head to toe. There wasn't a single other human around. Right when he was about to give up, a huge shadow moved toward him. It was a walrus. The walrus used its body to block the wind for him. It pushed the fish from its mouth right in front of him. And just like that, he survived for days, thanks to that walrus. The story got to this point, and Jack was about to tell him to skip to the good part, when his head suddenly started spinning. His vision went completely black. He dropped to the floor like someone just unplugged him. When he woke up again, he was sitting in a wheelchair. The room was lit with cold white lights and reeked of disinfectant. He tried to stand up, but his legs felt insanely heavy, like they were filled with lead. He flipped the blanket off his legs and almost had a meltdown on the spot. His lower legs were gone. The wounds were stitched up roughly. The bandages were neat, but disturbingly cold and clinical. The old man watched his reaction for a second, confirmed the anesthesia had fully kicked in. Then his smile shifted into something calm and creepy. He dropped the act and laid out his real plan. He said, "Jack, I'm gonna turn you into a walrus." Terror swallowed Jack whole in an instant. He screamed. He struggled. The wheelchair scraped back and forth across the floor. But this place was way too remote. There was literally nothing around. His screams just bounced off the walls. The whole day, that night, the old man finally left the room. The door shut and the lock clicked softly. Jack realized this was his one shot. He saw his phone sitting on the corner of a nearby table. The screen was glowing faintly. He dragged the wheelchair forward. He finally hooked the phone with his fingers. His hand was shaking as he unlocked it, and he called his girlfriend. He heard splashing and laughter on the other end. Jack had no choice but to leave a voice message. His voice was soaked in desperation. He said he'd been kidnapped. His legs had been cut off. He begged her to call the cops right away and track his location to save him. Right after he finished that sentence, a dark shadow fell over his back. Jack's vision went black again. This time when he woke up, he was lying on an operating table. A whole row of tools glinted with metal beside him. What was hanging on the wall wasn't a medical chart. It was a blueprint showing how turn a human into a walrus. Bones were being sawed through. Skin was pulled and stitched together. The anesthesia blocked most of the pain, but it couldn't stop that pure terror of being turned into an object. The old man worked like a craftsman, carefully grinding down his leg bones over and over until they looked like giant tusks. Those were the walrus tusks in his plan. When Jack woke up again, there was almost nothing human left in his shape. His limbs were stitched into heavy, clumsy lumps of flesh. His mouth was pulled into a weird, twisted shape. His tongue was gone. He tried to speak, but all that came out were muffled, animal-like screams. But this creature was still missing one key skill. He had to know how to swim. The old man hit a switch. The chains snapped tight immediately, dragging the human walrus toward the water. Jack fought like crazy. His limbs scraped against the floor with a horrible screech, but he couldn't stop himself from being dragged into the freezing water. The icy water wrapped around him in an instant. His body felt even heavier. His breath was brutally cut off. He thrashed around in the water, trying desperately to get his head above the surface, but the heavy flesh and chains pulled him straight down. His strength was draining fast. His vision started to fade. When he finally hit the bottom, he saw something even more horrifying. On the floor of the pool, there were a dozen bodies just like his. Every single one was a human turned into a walrus. They lay there silently. Jack finally understood. He was just the next number on this guy's list. The old man dragged him back to shore again, like he was training a pet. He rested his head against Jack's body, humming a tune, while picking up the story right where he left off. He admitted that the walrus had saved his life back then. It shielded him from the wind and cold, gave him food, and gave him company. But he knew better than anyone how brutal human survival instincts could be. He knew it deep down. When hunger hit the absolute limit, he still killed that walrus. He had to create more walruses to pay back that guilt somehow. The old man put on a walrus suit he'd made himself and stood face to face with Jack, like they were about to have some twisted ritual duel. He told Jack, "If you want to live, you gotta kill me." Jack didn't want to fight. He was numb from all the torture. But the old man attacked first, charging at him with a knife. Move after move, stubborn and insane, the two heavy monsters crashed around the room. The floor shook and banged under them. Their breathing sounded like wild animals locked in a fight. The old man was old. His stamina didn't last long. His movements got slower and slower. Jack caught a tiny opening, lifted those sharp bone tusks, and drove them straight into the old man's foot with everything he had. A scream exploded through the room. The old man fell into a pool of blood. A strange smile curled at the corner of his mouth. It looked like relief, like karma, and like the ending he always expected for himself. Right then, the door burst open from the outside. Jack's girlfriend, his best friend, and the private investigator all rushed in together. The first thing they saw was not the man they knew, but a monster covered in stitches. Xiao Mei broke down and sobbed. She just couldn't connect this walrus thing with her boyfriend. The detective was way calmer than they were. He'd been tracking this serial lunatic for a long time. With one look, he saw the death wish in Jack's eyes. He raised his gun, aimed it at Jack's head, wanting to put him out of his misery. Xiao Mei slapped his hand away, crying and yelling at him not to shoot. Jack Star, yet alive. After everything was over, he wasn't treated like a human and sent to a hospital. He was treated like a creature and sent to a zoo exhibit. There was a pool, fake plastic rocks. His girlfriend and his buddy would come visit. They'd stand outside the rail and call his name, but Jack just curled up in the corner and refused to look at them until she threw a fish into the water instead. The splash of the fish hitting the water was like flipping a switch. Jack slowly crawled out, moved toward the fish, and bit into it, chewing it to pieces before swallowing. That moment made her finally understand one thing. The man she once loved was never coming back. She stood there replaying everything in her head, from their first date to every time Jack crossed the line just to chase more views. All those clips flashed through her mind like a montage. This creature in front of her might still have a tiny bit of human feeling inside, but the way he lives now, the way he reacts. Right before she left, she looked at Jack and whispered, "I love you," in their old playful way. That used to be their little joke way of saying "I love you." Now it was a goodbye. After she said it, she turned around and walked away, with the shadow of a new boyfriend next to her. Jack watched her silhouette grow smaller and smaller, and a single tear slid from the corner of his eye.